Today we're going to show you how to change the lip seal kit on your washer. It's a really easy job. All we're going to need is a Phillips screwdriver, a 1/4 inch nut driver, and a 5/16 nut driver, a large flat blade screwdriver, a 9/16 wrench, a large hammer, a torque wrench with a 9/16 socket, and a block of wood. Let me show you how we do it. Now the first step in this repair will be to prepare the machine for the actual repair. So we need to disconnect the power, we need to disconnect both the fill hoses, both the hot and the cold, as well as the drain. Then we need to pull the machine out far enough so that we have access to work at it from the back as well as from the front. Once we've done all of that, we'll start by removing the escutcheon that holds the soap box in place. There's 4 Phillips screws. Just take all of those out, set them aside, and then we can just set this aside until we're ready to reassemble. We'll next move on to removing the door. There are 2 Phillips screws that secure the hinge to the frame of the washer. So we just remove both those screws. And the style of the hinge is such that the door won't fall off by just removing the 2 screws. Take those out completely, and we'll lift up slightly on the door and then pull it straight out. They have arrowhead shaped hinges on there that once they're into place and drop down in, it'll secure it enough to hold it in place. So we'll set the door aside. Now on the opposite side, there are 2 plastic bumpers that are held in place with Phillips screws. We need to remove those. Now at this point, you're probably going to want a container to put some of the screws in small pieces in, because you will have a few of them. Next, we'll remove the front panel. Just twist outward on the top portions. It's held in place with a little spring clip on either side that fits into a slotted hole on the back side of that front panel. And then on the bottom there are 2 hooks that fit into slots on the bottom of the front panel. Again, we'll set that aside. And next we're going to disengage the rubber bellows from this plastic shroud. Just grasp it in any portion there and peel it away from it. And you'll see that there are little tabs all the way around that bellows that fit into slots on that shroud. So just pull that out all the way around. Next, we're going to remove 2 5/16 hex edge screws at the top that hold the main top to the cabinet. Now, your model may have a little metal hook that reaches up into that main top and holds it down, or if it's a newer version, it will have a 5/16 screw right up into the top. So whichever version you have will dictate which screw you remove. Now you can lift up on the main top and tilt that back against the wall or support it in some manner. Then we'll remove 2 screws that secure the door lock mechanism. These are 5/16 hex edge screws. And we just roll that door lock forward, lift it out of the opening, and we'll set that aside. Now we're going to remove 2 5/16 screws on either side of that housing for the shroud. And the 2 bottom ones also go through a support to the base frame. So once you remove the screw, just tilt that down and out of the way. Now we need to remove 2 more that are on the beveled portion of the top. Now at this point we can lift that shroud up and out of the machine, and we can set that aside. Now with a flat blade screwdriver, we're going to remove these little clamps that go all the way around the tub cover. Fit the flat of the blade in between the tub cover and the clamp, pry outward on it, and we'll do that all the way around. We'll set all those clamps aside. Now we can lift the tub cover away from the outer tub, complete with the bellows attached to it, and we can set that aside. Now at this point, you can lower the main top to make sure that we don't damage that door lock assembly. Now that we've removed all the necessary parts from the front of the washer, we can move to the back side of it. We're going to remove this access panel. It's held in place with 4 1/4-inch hex head screws. 2 short ones on the bottom, and 2 longer ones on the top. Once you remove the screws, you can just drop that panel straight down and slide it out. And we find it easier to remove this plastic holder as well, so just tilt up on it and disengage the 2 little tabs from the top. They fit into 2 slotted holes. And we'll set that aside. Next, we're going to roll the belt off of the driven pulley, and we'll set that aside. Then with a 9/16 wrench or socket, we will remove the retaining bolt for that pulley. We can discard that bolt. Then we'll rock the pulley off of the shaft. Now we have 2 methods to remove that inner basket. We can reinsert the bolt into the back till it's flush, and then knock the tub through with a large metal hammer. Or you can just take a block of wood and rest it up against the shaft of the tub and knock it out that way. What we don't want to do is to damage the spline on this shaft. So that's why we like to put the bolt back into it, just to protect it. Now at this point, it's a good idea to put on your safety glasses, and as well a pair of safety gloves. Then we'll give that bolt a pretty good wrap. Once we've moved the tub far enough forward, we can remove that bolt and then pull the tub out from the front. Now that we have the pulley removed and the tub knocked forward, we can pull it the rest of the way out of the bearing housing. We need to lift the top slightly to get it all the way out, and then we'll set the tub aside. Now that we have the inner tub removed, we have access to the lip seal. And depending on your model of washer, it'll be one of 2 styles of lip seal, although the removal is basically the same for both types. So with a large flat blade screwdriver or a small pry bar, we're going to go in between the front bearing and the back of the seal and then pry that seal out. And we want to use caution that we don't damage the bearing. Now if you are replacing the bearings, you needn't worry too much about creating any damage. So we'll carefully pry that seal out. Now once we've removed the old seal, we'll carefully inspect that bearing, make sure that it's in good shape. If it shows any signs of rust or corrosion, you will need to replace the bearing. And if you're replacing one, you should replace both the front and the rear. And next we'll prepare the surface where the seal will mount, remove any corrosion or rust that may be in that area, or any soap buildup. Just take a flat blade, scrape it clean, and then following the instructions that come with the kit, we'll select the proper seal for your model, and then we'll install it. Now to install the new seal, we'll first of all moisten the outside lip of that seal, because it's a friction fit into this aluminum housing. We want to make sure that it goes in straight. So if the surface is nice and clean and prepared for it, we'll next just wet that outer seal edge, and we'll carefully center it in the opening. And then with the insertion tool that came with the seal, we'll slide that into the middle, and with a soft hammer, we'll tap it into place. Now just go around the outside and make sure that it is even all the way around, and that that outer lip is about flush with the aluminum bearing housing. And then we can remove that cap, and we're ready to prepare the inner tub to be installed. So next we're going to remove the steel washer that is adhered to the shaft on the back of the inner tub. So we just get a flat blade screwdriver in underneath of that and pry it up all the way around, and it'll be on there fairly snug. We have to work away at that. Once we have the steel washer off, we're also going to find a rubber O-ring right at the very bottom. We need to remove that as well. And we can discard both of those pieces. Now next we're going to want to clean this surface up as best we can. Just scrape away any soap residue or corrosion. And if you need to, take a little fine sandpaper and clean that surface. And then we'll also prepare where the bearing is going to sit and where the rear bearing will sit. Clean that up with a little bit of steel wool and some solvent. And we're ready to install the new steel washer. All right, now that we have that surface nice and clean, we'll install the O-ring. Make sure it seats right to the base of that shaft. And then we'll install the new steel washer. Make sure that sits tight on top of that rubber O-ring. Then next we'll take the little tube of Molykote grease that comes with the kit, and we're going to put a thin film of it on that shaft. Now there's more grease in the tube than is required, and it's also quite dirty, so you may want to put on a pair of rubber gloves and then just squeeze a thin film of it. Make sure that we don't put too much on that shaft because it will get flushed out into the wash. You'll end up damaging some clothes. So just a nice thin film is all that's required. Wipe off any excess, and then we can install the inner tub into the outer tub. We're ready to slide the tub into place. Center it up as best you can by eye. Carefully line it up with the seal opening. Make sure that we don't damage it. If you need to, have somebody behind looking through the bearing housing to help guide you. The tub should go just about flush with the outer tub, and then you can go to the back of the machine and install the pulley to pull it the rest of the way into the bearings. Now that we have the inner tub inserted into the bearing housing, we can reinstall the large pulley, and then we'll take the new bolt and washers that came with the kit. Install those, and we'll tighten that bolt to pull the tub completely back into the bearings. And then using our torque wrench set to 33 pounds, we will tighten it to the proper specification. At this point you may need some assistance to hold the inner basket from turning while you're tightening that bolt. And typically you would just jam the handle of a hammer into the back of the tub and let the pulley come up against it. And once we've tightened that bolt to the proper specification, we can roll the drive belt back on, slide it over the pulley on the end of the motor first, and then we'll roll it onto the driven pulley and rotate it a few turns, and then we'll need to align that belt so that it's centered on the large pulley. And now we're ready to put the access panel back on. We'll start by engaging those two plastic tabs into the slots on the back of the cabinet, and we'll slide the metal panel up into that plastic holder. Place the two screws on the bottom just to hold it in place, and the two longer screws on the top, and make sure the sides of that plastic holder fit into the opening in the back of the cabinet. Tighten that securely, and now we're ready to reassemble the parts on the front of the washer. So we'll lift the top up, and we'll take our tub cover with the bellows attached, and there's a little locating tab on the bottom that fits into a notch. So when we slide that up underneath the front crossbar, we'll line up that tab on the bottom, press it into place, and we'll take one of these clamps that hold it in position. We'll take the hooked portion of it, fastens to the tub, and the slanted portion fits on the tub cover. I'm going to snap that into place, and we'll put one down where that locating tab was, snap that one in place. Now we can work our way around the tub, and you'll see little flat raised portions all the way around that tub cover that indicate where these clamps go, as well as a raised tab on the outer tub. Now if you find them a little snug to put on, you can also use a pair of channel lock pliers. If you set those so that you can grasp the back of the outer tub as well as the front of the tub cover, you can squeeze those together enough to compress the gasket to allow these to go on easier. Now make sure that we have all of our clamps in place and we haven't missed any. Next we'll put the shroud back on. You will note that there are a couple of tabs on the back side, one on the bottom on the right and the top on the left, that will fit into two round holes. And that will hold them in place. Well, next we replace the 5/16 screws. We'll just put those in snug to begin with. We won't tighten them yet. We'll get everything lined up. Also the two on the bevel portion on the top. Next we'll reattach the bellows. So we pull that out through the front, get it roughly into position. Then we'll center up those tabs with the opening in the shroud and press them into place. Make sure that they seat firmly. So we'll start with the top. Get those ones in place that fit underneath the door lock. And then we can set the door lock into position. Slide that down through the opening, rotate it backwards so it lays flat against that crossbar, and then replace the two 5/16 screws. Use caution on the screw on the left side that we don't pinch that piece of plastic cord that is part of the door lock release mechanism. Make sure that moves freely. And then we can continue to put the bellows back into place. We'll move down to the bottom, make sure it pulls out over that edge, and press them firmly into place. And it's really important that that bellows be fully engaged to that shroud. If it isn't, your door will not close properly and you will have leaks. So make doubly sure that we have those firmly into position. Now we want to tighten the 6 screws that hold that shroud. We'll start with the 2 across the top and the 2 on the sides at the top, just to hold them into place. And we can remove one of the bottom ones and swing that support arm up into position and remount the screw and tighten it securely. Do the same on the opposite side. Now we're ready to lower the main top. Make sure we position that harness up into this channel so it doesn't jam it between the top and the cabinet. Make sure the fit is proper. And then we'll replace the hooks if your model had them. If not, the 2 screws that go directly up into the main top. Now we're ready to put the front panel on. So we'll engage 2 hooks on the bottom of the base frame to the slotted openings on the front panel. Tilt it up into position and engage those 2 spring clamps with the slotted openings on the sides of the front panel. We can put the plastic bumpers back in place. Take caution not to over tighten the screws that hold those bumpers in place, as they are plastic. You can break them if you over tighten them. Now we're ready to put the door back on. So we'll engage those arrowhead hinges into the slotted openings in the front. Make sure they're in fully, and let them drop down so that the hole in the hinge lines up with the hole in the side of the front panel. And we'll replace the 2 screws. Take caution not to get them cross-threaded, and then tighten them securely. And now we're ready to replace the bezel for the soap box. The last thing we need to do is put the scutcheon on for the soap box. So we'll replace the 4 Phillips screws. Now we're ready to reconnect the hot and cold fill hoses, connect our drain, plug the power back on, and our repair is complete.